What's up, guys? Thanks for watching the podcast. I truly appreciate it. I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe from you. That helps the YouTube channel grow. And I wanted to drop in and remind you one more thing. If you have any friends, family, or anyone you know looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, please have them call me. Get in touch with me via email at blake@blakebaker.net or on Instagram at blakebakerrealestate. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Under Contract podcast. All right, we are rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Under Contract podcast. This is episode 24. I'm here with Shannon, a.k.a. That Tile Chick. Let's give her a round of applause. How are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I came across your Instagram a while ago, I think organically, and I was just like, that's kind of different. You know, you're not the typical tile person. And that's really cool. I think that obviously sets you apart, and that's why you have such a big following. So why don't you just kind of tell everybody who you are, what you do?
So I'm Shannon, aka That Tile Chick, and I set tile. I was an accountant actually for many years. That's what I went to college for. But in 2020, I decided, let's take a leap of faith, and I'm going to go work with my husband full time. And since then, I decided, let me start an Instagram and document my journey because it's kind of off the wall what I'm doing. And I decided just to share a couple of projects I was doing, which was like so minimal at the time. I like replaced some brick on my house, which has nothing to do with tile. But, and then I also like did the backsplash in my kitchen and a couple of other things. And I don't know, my page just like started going crazy, and it just grew from there. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I really enjoy doing projects and working with my hands. It's like really rewarding. And since then, I never stopped.
So I was going to ask, what drew you to that? You know, because it's not every day, you know, a young woman like yourself just gets into laying tile.
Well, okay. So back up to 2017 when me and my husband moved here. A little bit before that, a little bit of a backstory is I was working in the city when we lived in New Jersey, and I was an auditor, and it was so like
soul draining.
Yes.
I bet.
Between that and driving, sitting in the car for 2 hours to and from work, like, I don't know, I was just miserable. And I just remember like my whole college career, I was like, oh, this is my dream job. And it was like the dream place I wanted to work. And anyway, so it came to a point where I found this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I've listened to that.
Yeah, and it like really changed my life. It sounds so cliche, but it really did. It like spun my wheels in like all these different directions, which spun me to start listening to different podcasts about real estate and about, you know, real estate investing and all of this stuff. And I kind of drew my husband in. And so from there, it was like, I want to move out of New Jersey. I don't want to live here anymore.
So you were born and raised up there?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was actually born in Staten Island, and I lived there till I was about like 12. And then my parents moved us to the Jersey Shore. So typical transition from New York to New Jersey. It's like a mini New York there. Anyway, so we lived there for like a good part of my life. And I was like, well, I want to move somewhere else. Like, I don't really know why the thought of moving somewhere was something so important to me. But really, at the time, all I know is that we were looking for a house because we didn't have a house at the time, and we both had good jobs. But the only house we can really afford was like a 1,200 square foot house with no grass, no driveway. And like the kitchen looked like a ghetto apartment kitchen. Mm-hmm. And it was like almost $400,000. Like the house needed a lot of work. And I'm like, this is like, we're going to be working for the rest of our life just to like have a front lawn or like have a backyard. I'm like, that is just not what I want for myself. So we kind of, I don't know, we just like assessed our life and we were like, let's move somewhere where it's more affordable, better quality of life. So we were weighing our options between Texas and Florida, and Texas just had a better economy overall at the time. I'm sure Florida is like really good now, but I think that the real estate here is still better as far as like somebody like a young couple like Chris and I. So we decided to just pick up and move to Texas, and we started our business, and that's kind of.
So was it the real estate prices that drew you here?
Yes, the real estate, the weather, like the economy is good here. It's like its own little pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things. And that's kind of what started the snowball.
We just honeymooned in New York City, and I was out there we were sitting at a bar, and I'm like, I'm just going to get on Zillow and just look around. And we were, we were right in the middle of Manhattan, 30th and 6th. So it was like, there was nothing around me under $5 million.
Oh yeah.
And
forget it.
We were leaving LaGuardia, kind of going, what is that, Queens you drive through?
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff I was seeing there, like you were saying, 1,500 square feet, $1 million, $800,000. And that area was not like, it didn't seem, I don't really know I haven't really spent too much time in that area, but it didn't seem like the best area. And just for reference, this house, when I bought it, was $400,000. And I was telling our Uber driver that. He's like, man, how many square feet? I was like, 3,000. He's like, that's too much. Why you need all that? It's like, that's so far out of their, world. They can't even imagine. But for here, it's completely normal for everybody to have their own house.
Yeah. And it was something I wanted. So to continue on the long story, I'm going to try to shorten it. We
got all day.
Yeah. When we moved here, we purchased our first house, and we kind of we did everything ourselves. And I was like, at the time he was running the business himself, and I was still working full time. And so there was things that needed to be done at the house. And I was just like, how hard could this be? So I was just picking up tools and doing it. And I really liked it. My dad's a mason. So I grew up like I'm the son my dad never had. So anytime he was doing a project, I was always like, what are you doing? Like, oh, let me try this. Like, let me do this. Like, I've always been that way. I just never really saw it as like a career path of something. Oh, let me work in the trades. It was never a thought in my mind. So yeah, I guess I just it just happened. That's truly the answer.
The best things usually kind of do.
Yeah.
They just kind of happen.
And I really enjoy doing things and making things, building things. I'm constantly like, oh, let's improve this or let's make this. And it's part of my personality.
Yeah. So when you decided to take those projects like hands-on, my fear is like, okay, I'm going to do my backsplash myself, and then just butchering it and having to call someone and be like, hey, come fix everything I just screwed up.
Yeah.
Do you run into that?
Well, we've ran into our fair share of problems. Like, especially like every project you do is different. And if you don't have like decades of experience, it's usually you're running into it for the first time. It's just really, like you said, like when I walked in here, you like podcasting because it's a good networking opportunity. It's the same thing in the trades. Like you have to network, right? Because a lot of times we call on people that have more experience, and they're like, oh yeah, you just do this or you get that. And there's certain times where like, we didn't even think of that as a possibility. Mm-hmm. And, we can get it done faster. Even still, like there's things where like we'll beat ourselves over the head, like trying to figure something out. And, we can spin our wheels for hours, but like somebody who might have had more experience can like figure it out in like 30 minutes. But I just think that it's all a part of like, I don't know how to explain it. Like it's all a part of knowing when you need the help.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like anytime you do something new for the first time, like it's not going to be perfect. You're going to run into problems. Like you just have to know when to ask for help, and that's how you learn.
Mm-hmm. And like with what y'all do, it's super important. Like say if you have a job across town, right? And you just head out there to go do it. If you don't bring like all the tools, you get out there and you're in the middle of something. You're like, oh, we don't have this tool. I need this tool. Like those little things can really, that can turn a 2-day job into a 2-week job, I feel like.
Yes, and that it does happen mostly with like, if there's not a tool you have, like nowadays, usually like you can get it, pretty close. Like, I don't know. It depends really, I guess. But truthfully, it's with product. Like sometimes we'll like run out of something on accident. And especially in my industry, there's like, everything runs through distributors. So in Houston, there's not a lot. They're all like centrally located in the city. So if we're working out in League City, like that's an hour away. Whereas a lot of things today are available retail or Amazon. You would think that like in the trades, you can get like materials like shipped next day or get it in a convenient location. And it's really not true still. A lot of things you still have to like, it takes 2 weeks for you to get it even shipped, or you have to call the supplier, make sure they have it. Then you have to drive an hour and you have to wait like 30 minutes in a pick line for the guy to go to get it out of the warehouse. So that's like 3 hours out of your day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you just like ran out of something on accident. So it's kind of.
And you have to quote the job, and you know, if you take way longer than you thought you were going to, it's like you just kind of quoting jobs. I don't know if you know Grayson, y'all, but yeah, I find it super interesting. Like I was just telling him, I'm like, man, I bet when you first got going, quoting jobs was probably the hardest part because the time, the materials, and then I bet it is pretty shitty whenever you are halfway done with a job and you're already realizing like, dude, I'm going to be in the red at the end of this thing.
Yeah. From 2017 to about 2020, Chris and I, like for the business, probably didn't really make a lot of money at all. Like not probably. And I'm saying that's just a word that I'm adding into the sentence because I do that a lot, but like we definitely didn't make a lot of money. The business was barely breaking even, and that's on a good day. So it took us that many years to figure out like, how are we going to bid a job, but also how are we going to select clients better that will pay us what we are worth? Like a lot of times in the trades, people are worried about staying busy over being profitable. Like it's a real thing. And I know that when Chris and I even started like switching our business model to like staying profitable, it shouldn't be a business model. Everybody should be practicing it, but in the trades, it's really not something everybody understands how to do. And it's not a negative thing. It's just the truth. We struggled like turning down clients or just not dealing with certain clients. Cause it's like, then you're like, oh, well, I'm just kind of sitting duck for this week, you know, but really what people don't realize is when you're running a business, you have overhead expenses. And then also like in a business, you're the marketing, you're the sales, you're the operations.
Oh yeah.
You're the accountant, you're the customer service. Like there's something you can be doing for that week rather than sitting on your couch drinking a beer or sitting in your garage. Like there's something you can be doing for your business so that you can get in front of those better clients.
Yep.
Like you should be taking that week to invest in marketing, learning how to market your business more, use social media, do something productive for your business in another capacity versus just staying physically busy 24/7. So I think that it's a big thing. It's a big problem in the trades. I know because even us, like I was like, oh, we're not working. Like we're failing. We're not physically working, but really truthfully, there's 100 other things we can be doing in our business to help ourselves succeed versus just being busy just for the sake of it, even if we're losing money.
And I feel like you kind of run into the same deal that I do is, everybody knows, everybody could, make a Facebook post. Hey, who knows a good tile guy or who knows a good realtor? And there's going to be tags. So you probably, I would imagine, run into the price wars, whereas, oh, I got a friend who can do it for this.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand, especially with home improvement stuff that needs to look nice and be presentable at the end of the project, you get what you pay for. I've seen, I had a listing one time where the buyer wanted the shower redone. And my guy was like, I would rather just give them money so they can do it after closing. And I was like, hey, they want to give you money for this. They don't want to hire it done. Well, they wanted it redone. And I was like, okay. And he hired, it was like a guy he knew at the time. And whenever I came over to like see the final job, I was like, oh my God, it was so bad. It was horrible. And, but they were stuck with, I tried to tell them like, just take the money and then hire it done however you want it done. But You know, it was a good price, but the work showed it. And dude, that shower's there. I mean, were you going to tear it all back out and redo it? Like, probably not.
And in my opinion, it's like when you take a shower, like I don't know what the statistic is, but like we spend a lot of time in the bathroom, you know, and in addition to that, like in a bathroom, right? It's not like just renovating a room, hanging a ceiling fan, painting, adding carpet, or adding hardwood tile to the floor. Like in a bathroom, there's every system. There's plumbing, there's heating, cooling, there's electrical, there's fixtures, there's flooring, there's tile. And then on top of that, like you have rain inside your house for, you know, probably twice a day, maybe 3 times a day, depending on how many people live in your house. And not enough people are paying attention to properly building a shower. You know, not only that, but like the aesthetics of it. When you take a shower, like who wants to go in the shower and see mold or, you know, crappy tile and like
doesn't drain.
Yeah, discolored grout, like just gross things. Like nobody wants to see that. And like I just think that not enough, everybody's just like worried about the price. Like it's expensive because there's like every system in the house is in that bathroom. In addition, like if one thing isn't right, it's a waterfall problem. You know, like one thing isn't right. Like if the walls aren't, if there's a, you know, a hump in the wall, it's going to reflect in your tile. You're going to have lippage. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing at all. You know, it's just going to happen. If your installer doesn't know how to properly follow industry guidelines, like your shower is going to fail. It's 100% guaranteed. It's going to fail. You're going to have mold. You're going to have problems down the line. Maybe it will look decent and passable to average people for like a couple of months, if that. But a shower that is built improperly will show signs of damage probably within a week.
Yeah, water's very hard on, especially the water we have is hard.
Mm-hmm. And with somebody like and water inside your home, like you don't want, that's no joke. Like you have mold, that's really bad for your health. Like it causes so many health problems. So I just think that it's wild that there's still such a misunderstanding and everybody's just like, oh, well, like it's a good price. It's cheap. Blah, blah. Like how cheap really is it if you're paying something, even if you pay $5,000 for a full master bath, which is like, you're definitely getting a bad job. If that's what you're paying for a full master and at the end of the day, like it's not installed properly, it's not going to last. It could potentially cause damage on your home and your health. What kind of deal are you actually getting? Mm-hmm. It's really not a deal. So,
I mean, I feel like the United States right now just runs on what is the cost right now today. Let's get it done. And deal with the consequences later.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it brings me back to the thing of understanding how to properly run a business and that every customer is not for you. Like in the beginning, I was like, oh, I can solve this. Like I can't solve it. You know, I cannot solve the people on Facebook. Oh, you know, I need a tile installer and there's 100 tags. Like I'm not going to solve that. Those people who are looking there on Facebook in the first place aren't my customers. Mm-hmm. They're just not.
They're just seeing what they can get.
Correct. And it's like, well, I'm not even going to bother. Like it's just not worth my time. And that may sound mean, but it costs me money to go out. It costs me money to take time to bid your job. It costs me money to do all of these things and try to explain to you just for you to try to tell me what price I should install your shower for when you're not the one paying my bills and my expenses for my company. So you want to pay for a crap job? That's on you.
And that's the beauty of working by referral, which is what I always try to do. Because when someone is referred to me, it's a warm lead and they've heard about me from their friend who bought a house with me or sold a house with me. It's warm. It's easier. They're coming to me with a problem that I'm ready to solve rather than like, here's my problem. Who's going to solve it for me? Mm-hmm. And like you said, whenever you see 100 tags under a Facebook post, hey, I need a tile person. Hey, I need a realtor. I used to when I was in the very beginning. And when you're starting out,
I think everybody does.
You kind of have to stretch a little bit. And but now I usually just reply thank you and like the comment or something, and mm-hmm. I tend to move on and I'm not going to sit there and like harass the person, like, you know, in the DMs and stuff.
Yeah. I get tagged every once in a while. Maybe I like it, but I probably don't even see it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, you have such a following now. I bet it's overwhelming, huh?
Yes, it is. And like, we don't have like the time that we used to like just continuously work on projects. So if we're taking a project, it's really special, or it's like a referral from a friend, or it's like somebody who's like, I'm hiring you and I don't care. I'll wait. I don't care what it is. Like, I'm waiting. Those are our kinds of clients now.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, it's far few in between because we only work, it's just me and Chris. There's a very rare time that we take on anybody to come work with us, like in a capacity of a sub. We don't have employees. So there's maybe one or two guys in the whole Houston area that we trust, that we're like, okay, you can, you know, if there's a house that has multiple projects inside, like a floor, you know, multiple bathrooms, we would ask them to come work with us, because we just can't, like, it would just be unrealistic for us to take on all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only instances where we could like trust somebody else, but usually it's just me and him for everything. And so we like to do one at a time, start to finish, work really closely with the homeowner. And usually every client becomes like a friend.
That's the best.
So it's really nice, because then it's like you enjoy going to work instead of being like miserable, where you know that the customer doesn't appreciate you, or they're like, you know, they just like don't look at you as a person, which is really crappy a lot of times. I don't know if you experience that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they don't respect your time. They're like texting you at like crazy hours, and then they expect an answer, and it's just, I just don't prefer to work that way. Sometimes when I say this, I feel like, you know, oh, I'm a business owner, I should be grateful, but
you have to draw a line.
You really do, because, you know, we've let it drain us, and we've been there, and like no time for even to go out to dinner together, or no time to even spend a holiday together, because we're just focused on working and like doing this for a customer, doing that for a customer who doesn't really appreciate it or doesn't respect your time. And it's really makes you hate what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why even do that? Like, we can just go to work for somebody who doesn't appreciate us at 9 to 5.
Yeah. I always tell my friends that have the type of job that whenever they're off, they're off. I'm like, dude, you don't know how nice that is to just be able to put it away. And especially like on a Friday, like, okay, I'll get back to it Monday.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, can you imagine? And when I got in the business in 2017, and like I said, when you're first starting, you have to kind of spread yourself a little bit thin just to figure out what works for you, what doesn't, get your business going. But after a while, definitely after the client's texting you, like I'm literally laying in bed trying to go to sleep and my phone's just going, sending me houses like, hey, we want to look at these tomorrow. Dude, it's 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to finally just draw that line where it was in 2020 when the interest rates plummeted and the market just went insane. My business doubled that year.
Wow.
So that was the first year where I was like overwhelmed. And I had no assistant, no nothing. It was all on me. So it was the type of deal where I'm on the phone, someone's beeping in, someone's texting me, and every time I check my email, I have 10, 15 emails. Oh, and I did feel some of that burnout. Like, don't get me wrong, I love what I do, but anything you do where you feel like you're losing your freedom a little bit, you will get burnout. So I really learned to like, hey, dude, at 10 p.m., I'm putting the do not disturb on. Like, I am. So if it in real estate, especially any trade, really, if it doesn't get done by about 5 o'clock that day, it ain't going to get done. Like,
no, because you have to rely on other things, other people, and like everybody's got their own life. Like, you know, it is what it is. It's going to be there tomorrow, you know? And that's something that even I struggle with. It's like, the email doesn't need to be answered right now. Like, you may see it at 9 o'clock at night and like you want to shoot a quick answer, but like, is that like the precedence you want to set for that person? Like, they're like, oh, wow, like they answered me at 9:00 at night.
So
like,
I can talk to him anytime I want.
Yeah. And it's like, some people will be like, wow, like there are people we run across that are like, wow, like, you didn't have to answer me, whatever. But those are the people that like, I wouldn't mind answering, but you don't run into that all the time. The usual basis is they just like keep overstepping that bounds, and they'll expect it and expect it and expect it. And before you know it, you're not getting anything out of the deal anymore. You're not feeling rewarded. You're not feeling any benefit from doing your work. And that's just ruins it.
That's the beauty of these things. It's such a gift that we can, I can, post pictures of my closings on my Facebook and my Instagram, and it's for free.
Yeah.
And people can see like, okay, Blake's doing business. We want to work with him because we see him doing business. But the other end of that is the accessibility. I can't even imagine it being, like in the 80s, you got off work and you went home. Like nobody could email you or text you. If they called you and you're out at dinner, you're out at dinner, dude.
Yeah.
If maybe you had an answering machine, like answering machines came along later, I think. But I remember being a kid and we had an answering machine. You get home, check the messages. And
you call back the next day probably.
Yeah.
Write a note down. Everything
now is like this. And, I've interviewed older realtors. I interviewed Ronnie Matthews. He's like one of the biggest. He was the number one team in Texas like 18 times or something crazy. But he was telling me like, in the 80s, we'd write a contract by hand, take it to the other realtor's office, drop it in their Dropbox. They'd have their client come up to the office.
Wow.
Make the changes they want. They'd bring it back, drop it in my Dropbox. So I'm like, dude, you could be back and forth for a week and a half on one contract when I can just do everything by electronic signatures now. We can get it negotiated. You can text me the changes you want. I can have that same thing done that used to take you a week. I can do it in a couple hours.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's the benefit though of technology. There's good and there's bad with everything. Yeah. It's just the way the world is.
And with social media, people think, they'll probably watch your stuff and like, oh, honey, we could do this. Mm-hmm. We could, let's quit our jobs. We could do what she's doing. They don't see the failures. They don't see the tax return where you see all your income and your expenses and you're like, oh shit. Mm-hmm. They don't see the struggle. Same thing with real estate. Like when the market exploded, everybody got into it. And it was like, I was the only realtor in my little friend group. And then all of a sudden, like everybody, this person, that person, that person, that person. Yeah. And now that the market's cooling off a little bit, we're starting to see, I think like 1 in 4 agents are getting out of the business right now. I saw that on Instagram. I don't know how true that is or not, but I know people are getting out of the business because of how it's just a lot tougher. I mean, you have to actually really work and have a good network to be able to absorb that slowdown.
Yeah, and that's just, everybody wants the quick and easy now, fast, and nothing is fast or easy. So like Chris and I, we moved down here with the intention for real estate investing. Real estate investing is not a quick, easy now thing. There's so many different things to know. You have to also network. You can't just unless one of your family members died and left you like maybe $500,000, maybe you'll get a little bit of somewhere with that $500,000, but unless you know what you're doing, you could lose a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But like somebody like me and Chris who like built from zero, right? Like we bought our house back in 2018 for $165,000, and it was all original. Like it was late 60s original. Like it was in great condition, but everything had to be redone. So we did everything ourselves. And now, like, there's a house up the block that just was listed, same condition as when we bought it. We bought our house, and it's listed for $295,000. Mm-hmm. The whole thing needs to be renovated, and I'm like, that is insane. That's insane. Like, if we bought our house and didn't do anything with it, we would have made money.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen a run on prices like we're seeing right now.
I don't know how long it's going to stay on the market because I don't know, but the fact that it's even listed, like the fact that the market's even supporting a price that way, like that is just, it boggles my mind.
It boggles my mind, and I do it every day. There's times where I'm like, I can't believe this is how it is now.
Yeah. And I remember when we were like, when we went to buy our house, like Chris was like, oh, like he's like, I think we're getting scammed. And I was like, no, this house is good, because we live by Old Lake City where the Kelly's is, and there's no HOA. The neighborhood's a little bit older, so we still have a lot of like the original people who built their houses there.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is, I think it's a plus. I think it's great. I feel like that means the neighborhood has a lot of potential, and you have a lot of people who've been living in their homes that love their homes. They've taken care of it. They're old, but they're taken care of. And to me that there's value there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, no, this neighborhood's perfect. I don't want an HOA. I want an old house that we have to, like, I don't care if it takes us a little while, it's going to be worthwhile. Like, I had a good feeling, and I'm happy I followed through on that good feeling, because sometimes I don't listen to that. And I can't believe how the market has changed in the last couple of years that we've lived there. And like, so we're getting ready to, last year we were like searching heavily, but the market was like all over the place. And we're like, let's just pivot for a little while. Let's take a little bit. Let's see what's going on, because it was just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so like now we're like, okay, we can maybe like pick back up on searching again, because we want to rent it out or Airbnb it. The Great Wolf Lodge is getting built literally like in our backyard.
Yeah.
So we have a couple neighbors who actually Airbnb'd their house, and it's doing pretty well. So we're like, maybe we'll do that. I don't know. So we'll see. And our original intention and our original thought was 1 to 2 years we'll be here, we'll rent it out. Not the case, because life just has other plans, but it doesn't mean that our goal isn't the same. It just means that like we had to pivot and do different things based on what was happening in our life, in the market, but like it doesn't mean we're going to give up. And I think that back to what you were saying about people want things fast, I think a lot of people would have just given up, but like we're still our goal.
Well, if you bought that thing for $165 in 2018 and you probably got somewhere around a 5% interest rate,
yep,
you're freaking golden, man. You could rent that thing out and cash flow that deal. And, but yeah, talking about how people want everything fast, they think like flipping has been super popular. It seems like the last probably 5 years or so, and it's getting harder and harder to do with prices just going crazy. And real estate is a super, it's like the shiny object in the investment world right now. Everybody wants to be a real estate investor, flipper, landlord. But they try to make it look sexy, and it's really not, especially with residential rentals. Like most people don't know that I would say probably over half. This is what I heard. Again, I don't know if this is actually true, but this is what I heard. And I've seen a few examples of, people get the impression that a landlord is like some rich guy that owns a house and rented it out. Most landlords are borrowing the money to buy the house, and they're lucky if your rent is covering the mortgage. Mm-hmm. And then, say the AC goes out, that there goes like probably most of your profit for the whole year.
Yeah. Like people, you have to, like when they say you make the money on the purchase, you really do. You're not actually making the average person who doesn't understand anything about real estate investing is that like, they think that like there's this big check that's getting exchanged from hand to hand, but really it's a waiting game. You put your money in this property and you have somebody living in it to pay down the note, and eventually that asset becomes yours. Either you sell it or maybe you build up a portfolio and you sell it later. It's like the bank. You put your money somewhere and it grows. And that's kind of how it's just something that people don't talk about. They envision this like large check that
every month
they're getting every month. And it's like, sometimes those deals do happen.
And if you pay it off, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that does happen, but generally speaking, in the long run, a lot of times it's not. Maybe you're cash flowing 100, maybe you're cash flowing 200, and you have to make sure you're keeping track of your expenses, because you need to make sure that if the AC goes out, if the roof is leaking, or if something happens that you need to cover the expenses, it's a business. You need to make sure you can pay for that. It's the same thing with running a business, and there's so many factors that people are not even thinking of, and they just like want to do it. And I'll admit, like, I thought that at first too, until you get into it and you really know the true ins and outs.
The actual job, I've said this before. I was talking to my buddy Jared. He was on this podcast. He owns Coastal Junk Removal, and he quit the plants and started his own business. And we were just talking. I was like, dude, getting into it, you think, like, for me, it was like, I want to sell houses. Like, that seems like something I could do. And you don't realize that part of it is less than half of the whole deal. Like, that's less than half of what you actually do.
Yeah.
For me, it's like you were saying, the marketing, the accounting, keeping track of what's working for us, what's not, keeping I have a team now. So making sure my buyer's agent, he's like my buyer's agent / assistant, making sure he's up to par on everything and he doesn't need anything, taking care of the people around me. That takes up more of my time than actually going on the appointments and showings.
Yeah. Yeah. The fun part of anything you do. So like setting the tile, making things look nice is like, it's only one fraction of the job, where like the planning, the research, the sales, the customer service, all of the before, building and prepping the bathroom, all of those things take up way more of the time than actually setting the physical tile, which is my favorite part. Mm-hmm. Setting the tile and like seeing everything come together. I like the most stressful and agonizing part and piece of the business is doing all of the legwork beforehand. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with social media, because I always get questions. Oh, well, I want to do social media and like, what do you suggest? And, they think that they're going to like make this video and their video is going to go viral and they're going to be famous. I'm like, I've been at this for like a couple of years. Like, I don't consider myself famous, and like, I know some people do, but I just don't see it that way. I don't think that that's the reason why, like, I don't think I'm better than some people, like, as far as from in the trade or in real life, like whatever. I don't think that, like, social media is great and having a following is good, but if you're not using it for the right thing, it's really not going to benefit you. And it takes work.
Oh, yeah.
So it's another one of those things that like looks shiny and great, but unless you put in the work and put in the effort and stay consistent and deal with like all the other stuff that comes with having to do it, which is like, it's an extra job.
So that's funny you say that. This was in one of my bullet points because you have 188,000 followers on Instagram. How many on TikTok?
On TikTok, I think it's like 160. I'm at like 40,000 subscribers on YouTube, and on Facebook, I have like almost 400,000 followers.
Yeah. So during 2020, when COVID happened and we weren't really allowed, showings for a short time were kind of just paused. And I'm like, dude, like, what am I going to do? I can't go out into the public and, talk to people. So I just started making videos. And in the beginning, they were if I go back and look at my YouTube channel, they were so bad. I'm like, just like with my phone, no microphone, just in my office. You hear like the background phone ringing and stuff like that. And that's how I kind of started. And I wasn't super consistent. And I guess it was last summer, about a year ago, I just said, okay, I need to pick a lane, whether it's going to be door knocking, cold calling, a lead generation system other than referrals. And I said, I'm going to be consistent about my social media. I'm going to post one video a day, every day. And I did it for a while, but when you said it's a second job, oh my God, like, people don't understand. Like, anybody could do that for a week. And it's when you get about a month in, you're like, okay, what am I going to post today? I've already like exhausted every idea I feel like I could ever come up with.
And especially in the beginning when you're not getting, like, you look at other people who have like established pages and they're getting questions or they're getting feedback, and it's like, oh, you're posting, like you're putting this stuff out there, this information, but like you're barely getting anything back. That's when it's the hardest to continue.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't make it past that. They get frustrated. Then they start pointing fingers like, oh, well, you're just this, so that's why, or like you did this, so that's why. And it's like, no, I really stayed up till like 2 a.m. every night and, answered every message, answered every comment, engaged with other people, did all these different things that I guarantee you're not doing because you think that like you're going to post a video or a photo and put some stupid caption and like you're famous and then you don't answer anybody. It's social media. The first word is social.
Yep.
So if you're not being social on social media.
And if your content looks or sounds like crap, like you really have to, you have to invest the money. Like we were talking about this podcast studio. Yeah. There's a camera sitting, I think in a box over here somewhere that I was like, I cheaped out. It's a couple $100. And after like 4 or 5 podcasts, people are like, man, that kind of looks like grainy. And I'm like, dude, this is bad. So I went ahead and dropped the bomb with the Panasonic. So, I mean, but it changed the game with the lights and the camera. It's like, now I feel like, like when I post something, I can be proud of what I'm posting. And it takes a while to learn that. Sometimes you'll buy something thinking that's going to work, and then it just doesn't. And then, okay, just spent $1,000 on this camera, and it turns out this isn't the one I want. So you have to be willing to make those mistakes.
Oh yeah. We've done that too. Like a lot of times, like Chris is I call him, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
Okay. We call him the technical bullshit extraordinaire. So like anything that's technical, like he's going to go do a deep dive and like do research. And it's usually always comes back to be the most expensive thing. And I'm like, do we really need that? Like the accountant in me is like, let me check the numbers. Like, do we need that one? Or can we like get by with like the middle tier, you know? And sometimes he'll give up and be like, all right, fine. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, we should have just bought the good one. Like, and that's happened enough times where I'm like, all right, like whatever. If we can just afford it, we're just going to get it, because then I don't have to think about it anymore. It's going to work. We can trust on it. We can rely on it. And it is what it is. And it just saves you more money in the long run, rather than you spend the $300 and then now you have to go back and buy the $1,200 one, you know? You spent more money then. I
spent about $1,000 more on cameras than I should have just bought this one from the very beginning. But I wanted to, I'll hack the system and make amazing looking content with a $300 camera. No.
Yep. We bought like this DJI camera, and it was good. I think it was like $500 at the time, and it was good, but it only lasted us 6 months.
It broke?
It broke. Oh, and like, it was this little tiny thing. It was like I don't even know. It was, sorry, I keep hitting the microphone. It was smaller than this microphone, and the lens was like this.
That's a drone camera, right?
It was so they make the drones, and their drones are good, but like the little DJI Pocket, it was good. It's just, I think that the work we did was like too rough, like working with Inset, wet environments, dusty, hot. I just don't think that it could last up for, you know, those conditions. So it just didn't stop working. But I was going to say something else and I can't remember. It will come back to me.
Yeah. So do y'all shoot, like I saw your video on waterproofing. So like, do you shoot that with a camera or a phone?
So if it's a long format video, it's with camera.
Yeah.
And, we have the Sony, A7C, right? Okay. I don't remember if A7C. So it's like the compact. And we have a wide angle lens usually, because we're filming in like a small area, and it's hard to get the whole view plus me.
Right.
And then we also have a fixed lens, which is like more for like, it's shooting like this, where we're sitting or standing in our studio, where we have like our black background, and it's just for talking headshots or photos, stuff like that. And then for reels, we are filming with our camera, with our iPhone. Sometimes we use a full body camera, but usually it's the iPhone.
Yeah.
And this brings me back to what I was going to say. Like, even today, with the benefit of today's world with short form video, is the lesser quality content is not necessarily a bad thing. Because of TikTok's introduced this new wave of like real raw content. And so when I hear people complaining about like, oh, well, I don't have the money to invest in like a fancy camera. Most people have a really nice Android. Most people have a really nice iPhone with a great camera. Like, there is no excuse. Like, if you want to make content, you don't really, just to get started, you don't really need to buy a lot of equipment. Like, if you want to level up your game, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people are missing the step of just getting started and staying consistent and going and diving into it and like figuring out what's going to work. I think that a lot of people want to run before they walk, you know, just going back to what we were talking about. And it's like, they're not working on like the groundwork of like, who are they going to be on social media? Like, what is their niche? 'Cause like like me, yes, I set tile, but if you look at my page and you look at another tile setter's page, there's a big difference. I do a lot of educating. I talk a lot about like the technicalities behind setting tile, whereas a lot of other tile setters, they're all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing their work. They're showing the cool cuts that they're making. And it's like, I always want to do the different thing. There's like a sea of people doing that. So I'm going to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that I could do that if I wanted, but I'm like, why am I going to do what everyone else is doing?
The thing I see is people don't get to the point, because our attention spans are ever shrinking now. So for realtors, whereas I've learned what works and what doesn't, you'll see my videos. I pop in with like, here's what I'm about to talk about, and here's what you need to know about it. Bam, 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 bam. I try to more or less keep them about 30 seconds or less, which is probably still too long. But it's because I used to do the 10-minute long YouTube long form videos where, hey, this is Blake Baker with Remax 5-star, and here's our market update. Interest rates were to fall asleep. Mm-hmm. No one, I see so many agents posting, here's the 5 steps to owning your home. And it's like, okay, that's great information, but in order to get someone to engage with you, it's got to be something that, because they're not going to, like, if it doesn't catch them within the first 2 seconds, next. So my thought is, I'm going to bring them content that they can engage with and find interesting, that sparks a conversation. And then if they want to buy a house, then I'll be like, okay, here's what you need to do first.
Yeah. Like the thing is like, you can't oversaturate them with all the information, right? Like we try to keep our videos now like under 15 seconds. Like unless, it's required that we have to make it 30 for some reason. But really like you don't need to tell them everything in that 15 to 30 seconds. They don't need to know. The point is that you want them to ask you questions. You want them to send you a message. You want them to be like, well, what is this? You want them to ask you something about that content. Not like you want to deliberately mislead them. It's just like you cannot possibly give them everything. You need to take one little piece and focus on that. And whatever questions they have, then you can answer that little piece either by responding to them or making another video. Then you know more of what you need to elaborate on. But really, you can't give everybody all the information, the full big picture within the small time frame that you have in the video. So yeah, it's very true. People are not getting to the point. They make it too long and drawn out. They think that they need to give them all of the information at once, and it's just not true.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this podcast. I'll take this podcast and I could make 35 clips and keep them short. And that's a big reason why I do this, for the networking and to be able to post it everywhere. So I was going to ask, do you have a YouTube channel where you do like tutorials or anything like that?
Yes.
It's just That Tile Chick?
Yes.
Okay. And then your, was it your online tile academy? Talk about that a little bit.
So we built our studio. We started that this year, and our goal is to expand more on full length training material that's available online. Everything today is available with like a click of a button. However, in the trades, education is lacking severely. And I think that we need to, like in the construction industry as a whole, like they're just behind with technology. The people who do construction are behind, and so are a lot of the the manufacturers that create products and stuff like that. They're still doing business like they did like 30 years ago. And they refuse to change. And it's very detrimental to the industry. Just being in it as closely as I am, you can see. So my goal is to make education way more easy to get your hands on. So I started Online Tile Academy, and right now we have our course for building a waterproof shower. The course goes over everything. So like if you never picked up a power tool, you'd be able to watch my course and be able to build a waterproof shower. So that's my goal. And the goal is like it's like double-sided, I guess. Like one side is for the homeowner, like say for example, there's a homeowner who like wants to hire somebody and they don't know anything about building a waterproof shower. So they don't know how to interview a contractor. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what information they should be looking for. And so if you watch the course, if you invested in the course, you would know like, okay, like these are the specific things that this person should be doing. And if you're not getting those things, then you know that that contractor is probably not going to do the job correctly, or they're going to cut corners. And that's just not, you just don't want that. And then the other side is for contractors who are either new or contractors who want to learn a new method, because the system I use it's Laticrete Products, which is a foam based shower system. And so like there's no silica, it's lightweight products, and it's like you have the contractors who have been in the industry for like 20 something years. They're still doing mud pans and they're using cement board or they're floating walls. Although I don't see that here. It's mostly like in California, they're still doing that, which is great. It's not a bad system. It's just silica, it's heavy. And so like, if you want to like save your back or use healthier products only like in your home or on for you as the installer, it's a great system to learn. And so like those are the two sides of the course. And then eventually we want to expand it into having other trade professionals come in and teach different trades, like specific things, like for example, how to change a shower valve for a shower head for the shower, how to maybe install a new sink. Just like those are basic things, but like anything from even prepping a subfloor on a second story home, like that would be more in my industry, but like we want to partner with other people who are in the trade so that we can be like, okay, this class is taught by whoever.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then like what we would do is like we'd split profit with them. So it's like, it's not only going to be an academy where I'm going to teach all the classes, because I'm not an expert at everything. So we want to eventually partner with other people in the trade so they can teach, they can make money, they can use technology to make money versus just like always having to be physically busy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how you scale. That's how you grow online is, just bring in other people. Like I said, that's why I do this podcast. I've met so many people that I never would have met for sure. Just never would have come across unless they saw my podcast. Like, hey, if you ever need anybody on your podcast, and then just keep this in mind. If you ever do start a podcast, you're going to get people that are like, oh bro, I'll just, I want to come on your podcast. Like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Oh, I'll just talk about life, like podcasting can be kind of cringy, like at times, like with certain people and content. Yeah. Life. Like, okay. Hey, I don't know you. And that was another thing I didn't think about whenever I put this podcast studio in my house. Like, I mean, we've talked and everything, but like I've had times where, it's like this person's on the way to my house and I'm like, oh, this is like just a stranger walking into my house. So my goal eventually is to have like a remote,
like a dedicated space
that's
not in your house. Yeah. I was like, this is cool. I've never actually been on a in-person podcast before. Everybody does it via Zoom, but there's always problems. The video quality is never
It's not
good.
the same. And there's that delay. You just don't get that. It's not the same. Yeah. But I was talking to my wife the other day. I'm like, what are we going to do with this black room, with this black carpet when we start having babies? It's just like, I have to figure something else out. Yeah.
Oh, and congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you.
That did just happen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You said you want.
So y'all are planning a wedding right now?
No, we just got back. So our wedding was, we left June 14th and we got back the 22nd.
And where was it?
In Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Well, where did you guys get married?
Texas City.
Oh, okay.
Close. About a 10-minute drive from here.
Well, that's convenient.
Yes.
Convenient. For us, it was it was worth it because our goal always was to like do something where we can spend a couple of days and make memories with like the few people that did come. I mean, we ended up having 40 guests, so that was a lot more than we expected, but it was amazing.
Yeah. Yep. I would have done a few things different doing what I did. We had about 150. So It was big, but not like crazy big, but man, I never realized how, like what goes into planning a wedding. Mm-hmm. By the end of it, I'm like, I'm just ready to be married and for this to be over.
Yeah. I mean, we did feel like that too, but like because we got there on the 14th and 20 of our guests showed up at the same time we did. And we were able to we went out on a catamaran. We did a couple things together. We were hanging out and the stress kind of went away. It was it is what it is at this point. The planning has been done. And I think that the amount of planning we had to do was probably the same as if we were planning for a local wedding, hosting 150 to 200 people. It was probably the same amount of planning because we had to obviously coordinate. We coordinated the catamaran. We had a welcome party. We had tacos and a bonfire after the wedding. So there was a couple of events, but I think that all the planning was probably the same amount. It was just for different things, and we got to do things over a couple of days, which I don't know. It was really, it was a great experience, I think. And I'm really happy we decided to do that because I have a huge family and I know that if I did it locally, oh my God, we would have had so many guests.
Yeah.
We would have had so, I have so my dad has, 1, 2, 3. He's got 5 siblings. So there's 6 kids total, including him. And they all have multiple children.
Oh, man.
And now those children are having children.
There's 50 people right there.
Yes. Just on my dad's side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, our day was very regimented. We had to be here at this time. We had to be doing this, photos, ceremony. But yeah, once we were done, it was whew, now we can just kind of settle into life after the honeymoon. Now we can just live life again. And it's great. So. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this. Your social medias, everybody go follow her at That Tile Chick on Instagram and TikTok.
Everywhere.
And YouTube. And is there anything else you want to add?
No, not really.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. And we will see y'all later.